We are joined on the phone by Mr. Jeremy Wade, the host of River Monsters. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning.
It's very good to talk to you, for one, because I love River Monsters, and two, anytime I talk to anybody with an accent, I think it's a win of an interview, so this is double good.
Excellent. Well, you can understand me. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've watched the show enough to get to get it down completely. This is season 5 of River Monsters. I want to know, how did the whole show begin? Were you a fisherman before and then got into the TV thing? Were you in TV before? I mean, how'd the whole show come about?
It's actually a very long story that would take about half an hour to tell it in its entirety, but I've always fished. And then I ended up studying zoology. I was a biology teacher. I've been a freelance writer for a while, although sort of not very successfully. But I travelled a lot. I was travelling for 25 years before doing River Monsters, and I just had this idea that what I was doing, particularly some of the fish that I was seeing, there would be a TV potential. You tend not to see, generally, what lives under the water in rivers and lakes. We're very familiar with what lives in the sea because you've got visibility. You can send somebody down in a camera, with a camera to film that. But freshwater, it was really untapped, and it came about sort of a bit by accident. It was just going to be a one-off show, but Animal Planet liked it so much, and here we are 5 years later.
Exactly. It's history now. And that's, are you at any, is there any struggle to find more River Monsters, or are you just, are there just so many out there that it's never ending?
No, it is a finite number because, generally speaking, we're talking with the apex predator, talking about the apex predators, and, they are not as numerous as the small fish. And, the last couple of years, we have been a bit worried that, maybe we are running out of stories. But what that's done, it's forced us to dig a bit deeper, think more laterally, and, this year we've actually come out with some cracking programs. I think partly because, we're just thinking more possibly stories now than particular fish. Maybe different locations. We went to for example, the cooling pond of the Chernobyl nuclear plant. That was where one of our stories led us this year. So
wow.
That's something I wasn't really expecting to do a few years ago. So there's still stories out there.
We're up here in Montana, and we've got the Yellowstone River that goes through here, Yellowstone Park with the big Yellowstone Lake. Have you ever heard anything about any potential river monsters that might live in our type of habitat up here?
I haven't. I do know that you have fantastic trout fishing there, and as well as normally when I fish, I'm using ridiculously heavy gear, almost like a winch, because I'm always gearing up for the largest thing I'm likely to encounter. But I do occasionally like a bit of light relief, something that will just sharpen my reflexes, and it would be nice to visit Montana. There's this very rich literature about trout fishing in the U.S. and I know Montana is this sort of is very often is the sort of the mecca for a lot of people. So maybe one day I'll come there, but maybe not for something large and toothy. Yeah,
maybe just recreational fishing here. What's the most of all the seasons? Somebody they asked this question. I think it's great. Of all 4 seasons you've already done, what's the craziest fish you've caught? Like, what was the thing that surprised you most when you actually pulled it up onto the boat and thought, wow, this is more than I had expected?
Hard to answer because lots of them have left me sort of fairly sort of open-mouthed. Maybe a fish I caught in the Congo in Africa called a Goliath tigerfish, which is not really known by the outside world, mainly because this is a part of the world that outsiders just don't go. And even if film crews have been there making natural history programs, again, they never really look under the water. And it's actually related to the piranha, and it looks like a giant piranha. The one that I caught was about 80 pounds in weight. Its teeth were an inch long. And just to give that some kind of context, that's about the size of the teeth in a 1,000-pound great white shark. And this thing lives in a river. It almost looks more like a piece of engineering than a fish. But sort of strangely beautiful at the same time. And And also that fish came, the first time I went to that part of the world was 25 years before I went there with the film crew, and I had 2 trips there just catching nothing at all. So that was a hugely memorable experience and just a very spectacular fish.
Is there a lot of that? On the show, we, of course, get to see a lot of the great moments where you actually catch the fish. Is there a ton of downtime where you're just actually fishing, where you're just sitting there for hours and waiting and waiting and waiting?
That is part of it, and obviously in the programs we can't show. We've got to get a sense of that. I have to say that fishing as a spectator sport in real time is one of the dullest things imaginable. So how do we convey the frustration and the time and all the rest of it? But then yes, those moments of excitement are very much in the minority.
Yeah, that's why I like it. I think a lot of people would think a fishing show would be boring and wouldn't catch on mainstream, but when we're seeing, when the focus isn't so much on watching you sit there and the focus is on these crazy fish and what lives out there. I just caught an episode earlier this week, I think, that was kind of the best of the best, like the craziest river monsters, and it had those eels that you stood out there with the Kevlar gloves and just let bite you, and I was scared for you. I was afraid one of those eels was going to shake you and you were going to lose your footing and fall in, and they were just going to swarm around you.
They were incredibly bold, and I think that is the worst case scenario there. That was in New Zealand, and the other thing there is, oddly, unusually there, the water was very clear, and they seemed to just come from nowhere. An incredible sense of smell they had. I hasten to add that wasn't exclusively my smell, although sometimes on these shoots, we're living in the middle of nowhere. But the director on that shoot sort of insisted that I covered myself in fish guts and then see what would happen. And these, they just came from nowhere and were not intimidated by me at all, which was, I was quite relieved to get out of the water at that point.
Yeah, I could imagine that. Can you think of, is there one moment that stands out above others as one of the most frightening moments on the show where you not because of the creature necessarily, but, where you've almost slipped or something's almost pulled you in, or you've had a moment where you thought, wow, that was closer than I'd like to get?
There have been moments, and it's normally not to do with the fish. Again, because with the fish, I've done my homework, and I tend to be very focused when I'm dealing with them. But it's the random things that come out of the environment. And a couple of years ago, we were filming in Suriname in South America, and on a little rock island in this river. And we actually had the camera rolling at the time. I was talking to the camera, and there's suddenly this deafening crash and a flash of light. And just reflexively, without thinking about it, I just threw myself down on the ground, and then we're running for the boat to get out of there. Basically, it's a lightning strike out of a clear sky. The storm had gone, and when we were in the boat, we then became aware that there's this motionless body in the bottom of the boat as our sound recorder's got hit.
Oh, wow.
And so, there was fear for myself, but then suddenly there's somebody else, and there was, for about 30 seconds, we didn't know what kind of state he's in. We had to evaluate him, and then suddenly we're into emergency mode. What do we do? How do we deal with the situation? Again, we've had preparation for it. We have we do have sort of basic emergency training. We have a trauma kit with us. We have a defibrillator. We have a satellite phone so we can call up somebody and get them to talk us through it. But all of that is, they're exploration programs as well. So all of things like that are always in the back of our mind.
I can only imagine. I'm frightened watching it, but I think that's what makes it so exciting. For people that haven't seen River Monsters, you've got to check it out. And anybody that's watching the show, just be ready. The season 5 premiere is this Sunday at 7 o'clock, and it's a 2-hour premiere as well on Animal Planet. So check out River Monsters and Jeremy Wade, and hopefully you'll get up here to Montana sometime and do some trout fishing. And people are letting me know there's also a Flathead Lake monster that you can find while you're up here too.
I've heard of that's the point. Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah, that's in a mental folder somewhere. We'll see about that.
Yes, there we go. We'll get all of that done. Jeremy Wade from River Monsters. Jeremy, thank you so much for taking time for us this morning, and good luck for this season of River Monsters.
Thanks, Big J. It's been a pleasure.
The Big J Show. Weekday mornings from 6 till 10 on Billings' #1 hit music station, Hot 101.9.